Do you have any questions you'd like
Two
to?
brothers in the war.
That's what my next questions we're going to be asking about. If you have anything, please
Oké.
don't hesitate to jump in or
En die
just
vroegen
shout
me
them
iets
out.
van vrede en kreeg, toen kon ze mij antwoorden weer. Ready?
Okay, so I know your two brothers were.
We lost two brothers in the war.
Can you tell me about that? When did they join? How is that? Were they conscripted? How did that happen? If you
Just
could just
yeah, tell us the whole story from start to finish.
Well,
what were their names as well, please?
they were both in Yugoslavia, and they said the German boys, the young man, should go to Germany to work. They need German because the Germans, the young men were at war, and they came over the border to Austria, and there was the Gestapo, and all the German young men who came with the train, they took and they said, you have to go to the SS
C'est elite.
and elite. And my one brother,
Names? What's the name?
Which brother?
Johann.
Johann, and they had their number underneath here, and they went in the army. They had nothing to say. And my younger brother,
Tony.
Tony, he went a freiwillig versorgt. He volunteered to Germany, and he went. We didn't know what happened to him for a whole year. So after a year, we got a letter from him, and he said, I'm in Germany, I'm in the army, I will tell you everything when I come home. And he came home, and my brother Joe, he said, oh, Tony, when I'm old enough, I'm gonna go to the army too. He said, I don't wanna hear that word, German army. I'm there. I can't go out anymore. But you are not going in, he said. You stay out as long as you can. It is not what you think it is. So that, and they both didn't come back. They both, Tony, we don't know what happened to him, but my older brother was in Russian, and he was wounded, and he died after the war was over.
But he came to a military hospital in Austria, and we found out where he was in the hospital, and my parents went there to get all his things, and the nurse said his last words was he called his mother. And before that time was my mother one time woke up during the night, she says to my father, Tony, go to the gate, there's somebody, one of the kids called Mother. And my father went out, checked, there was nobody. He says, there's nobody there. And they wrote the date down and a time, and that coincided with the time that Hans died in the army hospital.
Do you remember what year they joined?
No, that we don't know.
Oh, it's probably at least it started at 39. So they probably got into it in 40.
Well, Tony was with the first thing in, Tony, my younger brother, was in 39 already, and they marched into Poland.
So he was in there from the beginning.
Yeah. And Hans was too. He was in the beginning.
And do you remember
They
when
both.
they?
It was a year later.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what the dates in which they died on, or a rough estimate?
No, we have no. Well, my brother Hans died in June.
What
the
year?
in the hospital
What was it, in 44 or 45?
in 45.
45,
June
After the
45,
war-
yeah.
After the war was over.
Yeah.
Did they ever come home and do you have any stories what they shared with you, their experiences or?
They came home on furloughs and everything, but they didn't talk too much about it.
Well, we were too young even if they talked to my mother and father. But we were too young to.
But one story I remember, Tony, when he came home and he said, when they marched into Yugoslavia and other countries, some girls would come and they say, well, you could have me. He says, what do you mean? Well, you know what I mean. And he says, what do you need? She says, food. And he says, you do not have to lay down for any German soldier. When you need anything, you come to me. Because I have a sister, and I have sisters home and a mother home, and I would not want any type of military soldiers to force them to, lay down for them. And that's, I remember that story, So not all the German soldiers were bad. There were a lot of good ones. There was a few that probably did some things, but they shouldn't have. Just like any armies, any soldiers, even American soldiers, when they went into some different places, some of them were bad. They did things but they shouldn't have done. But that does not mean that all the people of the different kinds of military are bad, because they are all good people and they want only peace. And it's just too bad that it has to be war and killing.
So, but my brother, Tony, the one she talked about, he was in Ukraine on a big farm. He couldn't use one of his arms because he was wounded. So they put him there as manager because he could speak their language. So in the fall, they had a whole train with all the whatever they, with wheat and everything they took to Germany, and they had 10 men to watch the train so nobody would steal anything. And he came to Germany, had the papers, and he went to the office and said, here's the train and the papers. And the guy behind the desk, a military man, said, oh, you take a ton of this and a ton of this off the train. So my brother said, for who is it? He said, for my family. So my brother took his good hand, he said, my family, and the thousands on the front, they don't get nothing. If you want something, you take it off
So
yourself. And he made a big thing, and he gave that soldier that across the face, and he had the police called, and they threw him in jail. And they said they're gonna shoot him. And my oldest brother was married in the meantime, and he called his wife. So he said, I have to tell you, they're gonna shoot me. They will never tell my mother that they shot me. They will tell her I died on the front. But I want you to know the truth. I will be shot because what I did to that officer. But then it was close to the end of the war, and then they put all the soldiers that was with him in jail on the front to Russian, on the Russian front, and that's where he died.
That's where he got wounded and then he was,
Before,
yeah.
well, we don't know if he got wounded or not. And then, oh no, that was the other brother. But then he came home in February 1945,
Who's this?
Tony. They didn't shoot him, but he had to go to a special mission. They couldn't be married. They couldn't have no children. And then he visited us because we were in Austria already. And he said, well, I have to go back. My father begged him to stay home. He said, I will hide you by the farmers. He said, Father, I cannot do that. They know where I am. They come and they shoot the whole family. I cannot do it. He said, I have to go back. So he went back and he sent a card. I will see you soon. Love, Tony. And that was the last thing we heard from him. We don't know where he is, where he is buried.
Where he died or whatever happened to him. He's
Nothing.
missing
Did
in
you ever
action.
hear anything at all from anyone?
Nothing.
No.
And I was in contact with her from Europe, from Germany, with the soldiers, and they had so many soldiers, and they had his name too. They had the other soldiers the day they were born and the way they died and where they died. And the thing for my brother was empty. It was only his birthday there, so we have no idea.
When or what, how he died.
Yeah.
So if he would have had any kind of thing, he would have tried to get in touch with us, you know. And that's-
Because you know where we were in Austria, and there were a lot of people yet there. They could have found us if we.
Were you farming in Austria at this point, or were you just?
No,